Have you ever wondered why some people seem to effortlessly attract wealth while others work themselves to the bone and barely make ends meet? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Here's what might shock you. The difference between the wealthy and the struggling isn't found in their bank accounts, their education, or even their opportunities. It's something far more profound, something that exists entirely within the realm of consciousness and feeling. What you're about to discover might surprise you, because it goes against everything you've been taught about money and success. Picture this scenario. Has this ever happened to you? You receive unexpected money, maybe a bonus, a gift, or even find cash you forgot about. But instead of feeling secure and abundant, you immediately start worrying about how to spend it. Or worse, you somehow manage to lose it just as quickly as it came. This isn't coincidence. This is your internal state speaking louder than your external circumstances. The uncomfortable truth is that a person who doesn't transform their inner world can win the lottery and still end up broke within a year. We've all heard these stories, haven't we? Meanwhile, someone else with the right mindset can start with nothing and build an empire. The secret lies not in the money itself, but in the invisible realm of consciousness, vibration, and most importantly, how you feel about wealth right now, in this very moment. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share will fundamentally shift how you think about abundance. Most people approach wealth from a place of lack, constantly affirming their scarcity through their thoughts, words, and emotions. They say things like, "I can't afford it," "money is tight," or "rich people are lucky." But here's the fascinating part. Every time you speak or think from scarcity, you're actually programming your subconscious mind to create more situations that confirm that very scarcity. The universe operates on frequencies, and abundance has a very specific energetic signature. When you're vibrating from a place of not having enough, you become a magnet for experiences that match that frequency. It's like tuning into a radio station. You can only receive the signals you're aligned with. But what if I told you that you could flip this script entirely? What if you could learn to feel genuinely wealthy, abundant, and prosperous right now, regardless of what your bank statement shows? What if the very act of feeling rich could begin to attract the circumstances, opportunities, and resources that would make that feeling a physical reality? This isn't about positive thinking or fake it till you make it mentality. This is about understanding the deeper mechanics of how consciousness creates reality and how your internal state determines everything you experience externally. The person who masters this principle doesn't chase money. Money chases them. So the question becomes, are you ready to discover how to feel like a millionaire before you become one? Because once you understand this fundamental shift, everything begins to shift in ways that seem almost miraculous, but are actually following precise universal laws. Here's where this journey takes a fascinating turn. The transformation you're seeking isn't about becoming someone new. It's about recognizing who you already are beneath the layers of conditioning and limited beliefs. You see, at your core, you already possess the consciousness of wealth. The millionaire mindset isn't something you need to acquire. It's something you need to remember and embody. Think about it this way. When you close your eyes and imagine yourself living in complete financial freedom, what happens in your body? That feeling of expansion in your chest, that sense of lightness, that quiet confidence. That's not fantasy. That's your authentic self recognizing its natural state. The hidden truth is that abundance is your birthright, and scarcity is simply a learned behavior that can be unlearned. If this conversation has opened something within you, if you're genuinely ready to dive deeper into this level of transformation, I'd love to have you join our community by subscribing. I consistently share insights that can accelerate your journey toward the life you're designing. Now here's where the real revelations begin to unfold. Your brain operates on a principle that most people never discover. It cannot distinguish between what you vividly imagine with emotion and what you actually experience in physical reality. This isn't metaphysical theory, this is neuroscience. When you consistently feel wealthy, grateful, and abundant, your subconscious mind begins to accept this as your current reality, not your future goal. This acceptance triggers something profound. Your subconscious doesn't just store this new information passively. It actively begins reorganizing every aspect of your external world to match this internal state. It's like updating the operating system of your life. Suddenly you start noticing opportunities that were always there, but invisible to your previous mindset. Conversations take different directions. People respond to you differently. Decisions that once felt impossible become obvious choices. The impact of this shift goes far beyond money. When you embody the feeling of already having what you desire, you stop operating from desperation and start moving from inspiration. You make choices based on abundance rather than fear. You invest in yourself instead of hoarding resources. You speak with confidence instead of apologizing for your dreams. Behind the scenes of every wealthy person's success story, you'll find this same pattern. They felt successful before they became successful. They walked with the posture of prosperity before their bank accounts reflected it. They made decisions from a place of knowing their worth rather than hoping someone else would recognize it. This is why lottery winners often lose everything. Their internal state never matched their external windfall. The money came too fast for their consciousness to integrate, so their subconscious mind, like a faithful servant, created circumstances to return them to what felt familiar and true according to their self-image. But when you do the inner work first, when you genuinely feel the emotions of wealth and success before seeing the evidence, you create an unshakable foundation. The money that comes to you then isn't a foreign intrusion. It's a natural extension of who you've become. Your consciousness has expanded to receive and maintain it. This process doesn't require you to pretend or fake anything. It's about accessing what's already within you and allowing that truth to permeate every cell of your being. When you truly feel wealthy, not because of what you own, but because of who you are, everything changes. Now, I want to go even deeper into this transformation and show you exactly how to access this state consistently, because understanding the concept is just the beginning. The real magic happens when you learn to embody it so completely that it becomes your new normal. And that's where we discover the specific techniques that make this shift inevitable. Write in the comments, "I can feel it shifting," if this is resonating with your experience. The most profound revelation in this entire journey is understanding the sequence of creation itself. Most people have been operating under a completely backwards formula their entire lives, and this single misunderstanding keeps them trapped in cycles of struggle and limitation. Here's the hidden truth that changes everything. The vast majority of people work relentlessly, sacrifice their time and energy, hoping that eventually the external results will give them permission to feel different. They believe that once the money appears in their account, once the promotion comes through, once the business takes off, then they'll finally allow themselves to feel abundant, confident, and worthy. But this approach is like trying to start a car by pushing it instead of turning the key. If this message resonated with something deep within you, if you felt that connection throughout our conversation, a simple like, "lets me know this" content is serving you and helps me understand what truly matters to your transformation. The actual sequence of manifestation works in complete reverse. The feeling comes first, always. The external evidence follows. This isn't wishful thinking. This is how consciousness operates at the deepest level. When you genuinely feel wealthy before seeing the wealth, you're aligning yourself with the frequency that attracts wealth. You're essentially sending out a signal that says, "I'm ready to receive this," rather than, "I'm hoping this might happen someday." Think about the most successful people you know or have observed. There's something different about their energy, isn't there? They carry themselves with a certain knowing, a quiet confidence that seems to precede their success rather than result from it. Behind the scenes of their achievements, you'll discover they were already embodying the qualities of success before the world recognized them. This transformation requires a fundamental shift in how you move through your daily life. Instead of waiting for circumstances to change so you can act differently, you begin acting differently to change your circumstances. The impact of this approach is immediate and profound because you're working with the laws of energy rather than against them. When you walk with the posture of someone who knows their worth, when you speak with the authority of someone whose ideas matter, when you make decisions from abundance rather than scarcity, you're not pretending, you're practicing. You're training your nervous system to recognize and maintain a new baseline of self-perception. The fascinating part is how quickly the external world begins responding to this internal shift. People start treating you differently because you're treating yourself differently. Opportunities appear because you're now vibrating at the frequency where those opportunities exist. Your decisions become clearer because you're no longer making them from fear or desperation. This journey of embodiment goes beyond surface-level changes. It's about genuinely feeling grateful for resources that haven't manifested yet, appreciating opportunities that are still forming, and maintaining faith in abundance, even when current circumstances suggest otherwise. This isn't about denying reality. It's about recognizing that there are multiple realities available to you, and you get to choose which one you align with. The revelation here is that dignity, power, and worthiness aren't prizes you earn after achieving success. They're the very qualities that create success. When you embody these states consistently, your subconscious mind begins operating from this new paradigm, automatically guiding you toward choices and actions that match this elevated identity. Most people save their best behavior, their confidence, their generosity for after they make it. But the ones who truly make it understand that these qualities must be cultivated and expressed now as the foundation upon which their success is built. The external transformation is always a reflection of the internal transformation that preceded it. The beautiful paradox is that when you stop needing the money to feel wealthy, you become magnetic to money. When you stop requiring external validation to feel valuable, you become genuinely valuable. When you begin acting from the place you want to reach rather than the place you're trying to escape, you close the gap between a current reality and desired reality. Now, understanding this principle intellectually is just the beginning. The real transformation happens when you learn to consistently access and maintain these elevated states, regardless of what's happening around you. And that's where we discover the specific practices that make this new way of being your natural default. Write in the comments, "I'm ready to embody this," if you feel called to make this shift. The deeper we go into this transformation, the more we uncover layers of programming that have been silently directing your financial reality from behind the scenes. What I'm about to share might initially feel uncomfortable because it challenges one of the most persistent illusions in our culture, the idea that your worth is determined by your possessions or achievements. The hidden truth is that your financial reality isn't actually controlled by market conditions, your education, your connections, or even your work ethic, though these factors certainly play supporting roles. Your financial reality is controlled by something far more fundamental and powerful: your financial identity. This identity operates like an invisible thermostat in your consciousness, automatically regulating how much wealth you're able to receive, maintain, and multiply. Think about how a thermostat works in your home. You set it to a specific temperature, and no matter what happens externally, whether it's blazing hot outside or freezing cold, the thermostat works tirelessly to maintain that preset level. Your financial identity functions exactly the same way. It has a set point, a comfort zone of what feels normal or right for someone like you, and it will unconsciously sabotage or support your efforts to ensure you stay within that range. There's so much more we can explore together around consciousness, wealth creation, and practical manifestation. If you value this type of content that actually transforms lives rather than just entertaining for a few minutes, hitting subscribe ensures you won't miss the conversations that could change everything for you. This revelation explains so many puzzling phenomena we see in the world of money. Why do some lottery winners end up broke within a few years? Their sudden wealth exceeded their identity's comfort zone, so their subconscious mind created circumstances to return them to familiar territory. Why do some people seem to effortlessly attract opportunities while others struggle despite having similar skills and knowledge? Their identity thermostats are set to different levels. The fascinating part is that this identity isn't fixed, it's completely malleable. But here's where most people get stuck. They try to change their results without changing their identity. They want new income levels with the same self-perception. They want bigger opportunities while maintaining the same internal story about what they deserve or what's possible for someone with their background. This approach is like trying to cool a room by putting ice cubes in front of the air vents while the thermostat remains set to 80 degrees. You might get temporary relief, but the system will always return to its programmed setting. The only sustainable way to change your financial reality is to reprogram the thermostat itself, your core identity around money and worth. Your current financial situation isn't a punishment or a limitation imposed by external forces. It's a perfect reflection of your current identity settings. Every decision you make, every opportunity you notice or miss, every relationship you form around money is being filtered through this invisible program that's running constantly in your subconscious mind. The journey of reprogramming begins with honest self-examination. What do you actually believe about yourself in relation to money? Not what you wish you believed or what you think you should believe, but what you genuinely feel in your body when you think about wealth. Do you feel worthy of abundance, or do you carry subtle guilt or unworthiness? Do you see yourself as someone who naturally attracts prosperity, or do you identify with struggle and limitation? These beliefs didn't form overnight, and they won't transform overnight either. They've been reinforced through years of experiences, family conditioning, cultural messaging, and personal interpretations of events. But the beautiful thing about identity is that it's not who you actually are. It's just a collection of thoughts and feelings you've practiced thinking and feeling about yourself. The moment you recognize that your financial identity is simply a program that can be updated, everything changes. You stop being a victim of your circumstances and become the programmer of your reality. You realize that the limitations you've experienced weren't permanent truths about your capabilities. They were simply the boundaries of your previous identity. Now, the question becomes how to actually implement this reprogramming in a way that creates lasting change rather than temporary motivation. And that's where we discover the specific techniques that literally rewire your subconscious mind to operate from an entirely new baseline of self-perception. Write in the comments, "I'm updating my identity," if you're ready to reprogram your financial thermostat. The reprogramming process involves specific practices that work directly with your subconscious mind, and what I'm about to share represents some of the most powerful techniques ever discovered for creating lasting transformation. These aren't theoretical concepts. They're practical tools that bypass your conscious resistance and speak directly to the part of your mind that controls your reality. The first revelation involves the hidden science of mental rehearsal. Your brain has a fascinating characteristic. It cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and an actual memory when both are accompanied by strong emotion. This means you can literally create new neural pathways by consistently visualizing yourself living from wealth consciousness. When you spend time each day mentally experiencing your life as someone who already has financial freedom, you're not just daydreaming. You're rewiring your identity at the cellular level. The key is specificity and sensory engagement. Instead of vaguely imagining being rich, you create detailed scenarios where you experience what it feels like to move through the world as someone whose relationship with money is completely transformed. You feel the texture of quality materials, hear the confident tone in your voice when discussing investments, sense the relaxed energy that comes from knowing you have choices. The more real you make this experience in your mind, the more your subconscious accepts it as your actual reality. Behind the scenes, something profound happens during these visualization sessions. Your nervous system begins adapting to this new identity. Your posture changes subtly, your decision-making process shifts, your perception of opportunities expands. You're essentially training your entire being to operate from a different baseline of self-perception. But visualization alone isn't enough. It must be supported by a fundamental shift in how you communicate with yourself and the world. The language patterns you use daily are constantly programming your subconscious mind, either reinforcing limitation or expanding possibility. Most people unknowingly sabotage their progress through unconscious speech patterns that affirm scarcity and powerlessness. Your like tells me that these insights are landing where they need to land, with people who are ready to apply this wisdom rather than just consume it. It's a simple way to acknowledge the value exchange we've shared here. The transformation happens when you begin questioning the automatic responses that have been running your life. Instead of defaulting to statements that reinforce lack, you train yourself to ask empowering questions that open your mind to solutions. This isn't about positive affirmations that feel fake or forced. It's about genuinely shifting your mental orientation from problem-focused to possibility-focused. The impact of this language transformation goes far beyond personal psychology. The words you speak carry energy, and that energy influences how others respond to you. When you speak from abundance rather than scarcity, people unconsciously register you as someone who operates from a different paradigm. Opportunities begin presenting themselves because you're now vibrating at the frequency where those opportunities exist. What's happening behind the scenes is a complete rewiring of your neural networks. Every time you catch yourself using limitation language and consciously choose expansion language instead, you're literally building new pathways in your brain. Your subconscious mind begins receiving consistent messages that align with prosperity rather than struggle. The journey of transformation accelerates dramatically when these practices become as natural as breathing. The visualization sessions stop feeling like exercises and start feeling like remembering. The language shifts, stop requiring conscious effort, and become your automatic way of communicating. You're no longer trying to convince yourself of a new reality, you're living from it. The beautiful paradox is that as you consistently engage with these practices, the line between visualization and reality begins to blur. You start making decisions from the place you're visualizing rather than the place you're trying to escape. Your actions naturally align with your expanded identity because that identity has become genuinely integrated into your nervous system. This integration process creates momentum that builds upon itself. Each day of practice strengthens the new neural pathways while allowing the old patterns of limitation to weaken through disuse. You begin noticing that abundance-minded choices feel more natural than scarcity-minded ones because you've literally rewired your brain to default to expansion rather than contraction. Now, what makes this transformation truly sustainable is understanding how to maintain these elevated states consistently, especially when external circumstances challenge your new identity. And that's where we discover the deeper principles that separate temporary motivation from lasting metamorphosis. Write in the comments, "My brain is rewiring," if you can feel these shifts happening in your own experience. The deeper we venture into this transformation, the more we uncover the fundamental mechanics of how reality actually operates. Most people spend their entire lives trying to manipulate external circumstances while completely missing the true creative force that shapes their experience. What I'm about to reveal represents one of the most profound discoveries about consciousness and manifestation. The hidden truth is that the universe doesn't respond to your thoughts, your wishes, or even your desperate prayers. It responds exclusively to your emotional frequency, the feeling state you consistently occupy. This isn't metaphysical theory, this is observable science. Your emotions are constantly broadcasting a signal, and that signal is what determines what you attract into your experience. Think about it this way. When you feel genuinely grateful, abundant, and excited about your financial future, you're emitting a very specific frequency. That frequency is magnetic to opportunities, insights, and circumstances that match its vibration. But when you feel anxious, desperate, or fearful about money, you're broadcasting an entirely different signal that attracts experiences aligned with those emotions. The revelation that changes everything is understanding the difference between wanting something and feeling like you already possess it. Most people live in a constant state of wanting more money, wanting better opportunities, wanting financial freedom. But wanting, by its very nature, implies lack. When you want something, you're affirming that you don't currently have it, and the universe dutifully reflects that reality back to you. Behind the scenes of every genuine manifestation, you'll discover someone who made a fundamental shift from wanting to having. They stopped hoping their desire would manifest someday and started living as if it had already materialized. This isn't about pretending or denying current circumstances. It's about accessing the emotional state that corresponds to your fulfilled desire and learning to sustain it regardless of external evidence. The journey of transformation requires you to become emotionally familiar with success before it arrives physically. When you can genuinely feel the relief, the excitement, the gratitude, and the sense of completion that comes with having achieved your financial goals, you're no longer hoping for a future event. You're remembering a present reality that hasn't yet materialized in form. I create these videos for people who are serious about transformation, who want real tools rather than surface-level motivation. If that's you, if you're committed to this path of conscious wealth creation, subscribe to stay connected with this community of like-minded individuals. This distinction separates those who successfully manifest their desires from those who remain perpetually wishing. The manifestors have learned to live from the end result. They've trained themselves to feel successful before seeing success, to feel wealthy before accumulating wealth, to feel grateful before receiving what they're grateful for. They understand that the feeling is the cause, not the effect. The impact of this understanding completely transforms your relationship with time and outcomes. Instead of placing your fulfillment in some imaginary future moment when everything works out, you access that fulfillment now. You stop living in a constant state of deferral and start experiencing the emotions you've been seeking through external achievements. What happens behind the scenes when you make this shift is remarkable. Your decisions begin flowing from contentment rather than desperation. Your actions are inspired rather than forced. Your energy becomes magnetic because you're no longer emanating need or lack. People respond to you differently because you're operating from a completely different emotional foundation. The fascinating part is how quickly external circumstances begin aligning when you genuinely inhabit the feeling state of your fulfilled desire. It's as if the universe was just waiting for you to stop contradicting your own wishes with emotions of lack and limitation. Once your emotional frequency consistently matches what you want to experience, the manifestation becomes inevitable. This Process requires a fundamental shift in how you relate to your desires. Instead of seeing them as future possibilities that may or may not happen, you begin treating them as current realities that are simply moving from the invisible realm into visible form. You develop the patience of someone who knows their package is in the mail, rather than the anxiety of someone who's not sure if they'll ever receive what they ordered. The transformation deepens as you learn to sustain these elevated emotional states not just during visualization sessions, but throughout your daily interactions with the world. This consistency is what separates temporary motivation from lasting metamorphosis. Now, understanding how to maintain this emotional mastery when faced with apparent contradictions or challenging circumstances represents the next level of this practice. And that's where we discover the techniques that make this new way of being completely unshakable. Write in the comments, "I feel it." Already, if you're beginning to experience this emotional shift, the mastery of emotional states opens the door to one of the most powerful tools available to human consciousness, the strategic use of imagination. What most people don't realize is that imagination isn't just creative daydreaming. It's the actual mechanism through which invisible possibilities become visible realities. Your imagination serves as the bridge between what exists in potential and what manifests in form, the hidden. Truth behind this process lies in how your subconscious mind processes information. Unlike your logical, analytical mind that can distinguish between memory and imagination, your subconscious operates on a completely different principle. When you vividly imagine an experience with rich sensory detail and genuine emotion, your subconscious records it as if it actually happened. This isn't a flaw in the system. It's a feature that allows you to literally program new realities into your life. Think about how athletes use this principle. Olympic champions don't just train their bodies, they train their minds through detailed mental rehearsal. They visualize their perfect performance so repeatedly and intensely that their nervous system learns the patterns before they ever step onto the field. When the actual moment arrives, their body knows exactly what to do because it has already experienced success thousands of times in imagination. The same principle applies to financial transformation, but with an even deeper level of possibility. When you consistently imagine yourself living from wealth consciousness, making decisions without financial stress, enjoying the freedom that comes with abundance, feeling genuinely grateful for your prosperity, you're not just hoping these experiences will happen someday. You're literally creating neural pathways that make this way of being your new normal. Behind the scenes of this process, your entire operating system begins shifting. The decisions that once felt impossible start feeling obvious. The confidence that you thought would come after success begins emerging before success. The generosity, the vision, the sense of purpose that you associated with "someday when I have money" becomes accessible right now. This transformation reveals one of the most profound insights about wealth consciousness. You don't need to wait for external permission to embody the qualities of abundance. The person who lacks nothing doesn't lack nothing because of what they own. They lack nothing because of how they perceive themselves and their relationship to life itself. Living as if you're already a millionaire doesn't mean spending money you don't have or pretending your current circumstances don't exist. It means adopting the internal state, the decision-making process, and the emotional foundation of someone who operates from abundance rather than scarcity. It means walking with the dignity of someone who knows their worth, speaking with the authority of someone whose ideas matter, and choosing with the wisdom of someone who understands that resources flow toward those who steward them well. The impact of this shift extends far beyond personal psychology. When you genuinely embody wealth consciousness, other people unconsciously register the change. They respond to your energy differently because you're no longer emanating need or desperation. Opportunities begin presenting themselves because you're vibrating at the frequency where those opportunities naturally exist. The journey of transformation accelerates dramatically when you realize that this isn't about becoming someone different. It's about accessing who you already are beneath the layers of conditioning and limitation. The millionaire consciousness isn't foreign to you. It's simply been dormant, waiting for you to remember and activate it. What makes this approach so powerful is that it bypasses all the external obstacles that typically block financial progress. You're not waiting for the economy to improve, for someone to give you permission, or for circumstances to align perfectly. You're working directly with the creative principle that shapes all circumstances, your consciousness itself. The revelation deepens as you discover that this way of being isn't just a strategy for achieving financial goals. It's a completely new way of experiencing life. When you live from the consciousness of someone who lacks nothing, scarcity thinking becomes not just unnecessary, but literally incompatible with your new identity. Now, sustaining this elevated state of consciousness requires understanding how to navigate the inevitable challenges and apparent contradictions that arise during any significant transformation, and that's where we uncover the advanced principles that make this new way of being absolutely unshakable. Write in the comments, "I'm living from abundance now," if you're ready to embody this consciousness fully. The advanced principles of transformation go beyond mental exercises and emotional states. They require embodying a completely different standard of behavior in your daily interactions with the world. The hidden truth is that millionaire consciousness isn't just something you think about or feel. It's something you demonstrate through every micro-decision, every gesture, every choice about how you move through your day. Behind the scenes of every person who successfully transforms their financial reality, you'll discover someone who made a fundamental decision to start operating from their desired identity immediately, rather than waiting for external circumstances to give them permission. They began treating themselves with the respect they wanted the world to show them. They started making choices based on long-term vision rather than short-term comfort. They became selective about whose opinions carried weight in their decision-making process. The journey of transformation accelerates dramatically when you understand that purpose isn't something you find, it's something you embody. When you move through your day with intentionality, when your actions reflect someone who knows where they're going and why it matters, you're not just changing your behavior. You're reprogramming your nervous system to operate from a position of power rather than reactivity. This shift in how you carry yourself has immediate impact on how others perceive and respond to. People unconsciously register the energy of someone who operates from purpose versus someone who's drifting through life, hoping something good will happen. The opportunities, the connections, the synchronicities that seemed elusive when you were operating from desperation become naturally available when you're operating from self-respect and clear intention. The revelation deepens when you realize that energy management isn't a luxury. It's the foundation of wealth consciousness. Millionaires understand that their attention and emotional state are their most valuable resources. They don't scatter their focus on drama, gossip, or activities that drain their vital force. They protect their mental and emotional environment as carefully as they would protect a valuable investment. But perhaps the most profound transformation happens when you completely shift your relationship with the very act of requesting or receiving money. The hidden truth that changes everything is recognizing that when you approach money from a place of need or desperation, you're actually sending a signal that reinforces the very lack you're trying to escape. The energy of asking, hoping, or begging for money carries an inherent vibration of, "I don't have this." Every time you operate from that frequency, you're unconsciously affirming your separation from abundance. The universe, which responds to energy rather than words, receives this signal and continues to reflect back circumstances that match your internal state of lacking. The transformation occurs when you make a fundamental shift from asking to receiving, from hoping to knowing, from needing to having. Instead of approaching money as something external that you need to convince to come to you, you begin operating from the consciousness of someone who already possesses what they desire. This isn't about pretending or denying current circumstances. It's about accessing the emotional state that corresponds to your fulfilled desire and sustaining it regardless of external evidence. Behind the scenes of this shift, something remarkable happens to your decision-making process. You stop making choices from desperation and start making them from abundance. You invest in yourself because you know you're worth investing in. You say no to opportunities that don't align with your vision because you trust that better options are available. You negotiate from strength because you genuinely feel valuable rather than needy. The impact extends beyond personal psychology into the realm of practical results. When you operate from the consciousness of already having what you desire, you become magnetic to resources, opportunities, and people who can support your vision. You're no longer emanating the energy of lack that repels abundance. Instead, you're broadcasting the frequency that naturally attracts prosperity. This principle reveals why gratitude practices are so transformative when done correctly. It's not about being grateful for what you currently have in hopes that you'll receive more. It's about accessing the genuine feeling of gratitude for what's already yours, but hasn't yet manifested in physical form. You're thanking the universe like someone who's already received their order, rather than someone who's still hoping it might be delivered. Now, understanding how to maintain this elevated consciousness consistently, especially when faced with apparent contradictions or challenging circumstances, represents the deeper mastery that transforms temporary peak states into your permanent way of being. And that's where we discover the techniques that make this transformation absolutely irreversible. Write in the comments, "I already have it," if you can feel this shift from asking to receiving happening within you. The mastery of this elevated consciousness reveals itself most clearly in how you express gratitude. There's a profound difference between the gratitude of someone who hopes to receive and the gratitude of someone who knows they've already been chosen to receive. This distinction represents one of the most powerful transformations you can make in your relationship with abundance. When you thank the universe from a place of lack or desperation, you're unconsciously affirming your position as someone who needs to convince external forces to help you. But when you express gratitude from the consciousness of an heir, someone who inherently knows their worth and their rightful place in the flow of abundance, you're operating from an entirely different paradigm. You're not pleading, you're acknowledging. You're not hoping, you're recognizing what's already in motion. Behind the scenes of this shift, your entire energetic signature changes. The universe responds to the quality of your gratitude, not just the fact that you're expressing it. When your appreciation comes from the place of already knowing you're provided for, you become magnetic to experiences that confirm this knowing. You're no longer trying to convince abundance to find you, you're simply celebrating its inevitable arrival. The journey of transformation deepens dramatically when you understand that everything existing in physical reality began as an invisible idea in someone's imagination. The device you're watching this on, the building you're sitting in, the economic systems that govern our world, every single thing started as pure imagination before becoming tangible form. This isn't philosophical theory. This is the fundamental creative principle that governs all manifestation. The hidden truth that changes everything is recognizing that your imagination isn't separate from reality. It's the realm where reality is conceived and gestated before birth. When you consistently imagine yourself living from wealth consciousness, making decisions without financial stress, moving through the world with the confidence of someone whose resources match their vision, you're not escaping reality, you're designing it. Most people severely underestimate the creative power of focused imagination because they've been conditioned to believe that only physical action creates results. But the revelations of quantum physics and neuroscience confirm what mystics have always known. Consciousness shapes matter, not the other way around. Your sustained mental images, when charged with genuine emotion and expectation, become blueprints that your subconscious mind works tirelessly to manifest. The impact of this understanding completely transforms your relationship with limitations. When you truly grasp that your current circumstances were first imagined, perhaps unconsciously, before they became real, you realize that changing your circumstances requires changing your imagination. You stop being a victim of conditions you didn't consciously choose and become the deliberate architect of experiences you actively design. Behind the scenes of every breakthrough, every innovation, every personal transformation, you'll discover someone who dared to imagine beyond the boundaries of what seemed possible. They saw solutions where others saw problems. They envisioned opportunities where others saw obstacles. They sustained a vision of their success so consistently that their external reality had no choice but to reorganize around it. The journey requires you to treat your imagination with the same respect you would give to any valuable resource. This means being intentional about the mental images you entertain, the scenarios you rehearse, and the emotional states you cultivate through visualization. Your imagination becomes a sacred space where you consciously create your future rather than unconsciously replaying your past. The transformation accelerates when you realize that the quality of your imagination directly determines the quality of your life. If you can only imagine struggle, limitation, and modest goals, that's precisely what you'll experience. But when you expand your imaginative capacity to envision extraordinary success, profound impact, and unlimited resources, you're literally expanding the realm of what's possible for you. What makes this principle so powerful is that it requires no external permission or resources. Regardless of your current circumstances, you have immediate access to the creative realm of imagination. You can begin designing your ideal financial reality right now with as much detail and emotional intensity as you choose to invest. Now, taking this understanding to its deepest level means recognizing how to sustain these elevated states of imagination and gratitude even when external circumstances seem to contradict your inner vision. And that's where we discover the advanced techniques that make this transformation absolutely unshakable. Write in the comments, "My imagination is creating my reality," if you're beginning to see the creative power of your mental images. The advanced understanding of consciousness and creation leads us to one of the most profound revelations about wealth, the recognition that millionaire consciousness isn't just about having money. It's about embodying a completely different mental operating system. The hidden truth is that true wealth consciousness transcends financial circumstances entirely. It's a way of thinking, feeling, and perceiving that exists independently of your current bank balance. Behind the scenes of every person who has achieved lasting financial success, you'll discover someone who made a fundamental shift from scarcity-based thinking to abundance-based thinking long before their external circumstances reflected that change. They stopped measuring their worth by what they owned and started operating from an inherent sense of value that didn't require external validation. They moved through the world with the confidence of someone who knows their ideas matter, their presence adds value, and their contribution is significant. The transformation begins when you understand that this mental state isn't reserved for people who already have millions. It's available to anyone willing to make the internal shift from focusing on having to focusing on being. When your primary attention moves from acquiring things to becoming the type of person who naturally attracts success, everything changes. The having becomes a natural byproduct of the being rather than the desperate goal that drives your every action. This journey reveals something fascinating about the nature of money itself. It has its own intelligence, its own preferences about where it wants to flow. Money is attracted to environments where it feels welcomed, appreciated, and wisely stewarded. It gravitates toward people who demonstrate the qualities that money itself represents: freedom, power, choice, and the ability to create positive impact in the world. The revelation that changes everything is recognizing that you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. Your identity is like a magnetic field that draws experiences, opportunities, and resources that match its frequency. If your core identity operates from lack, limitation, and unworthiness, no amount of positive thinking or external effort will override that fundamental programming. But when your identity aligns with abundance, confidence, and value creation, money finds you inevitable. Behind the scenes of this process, your subconscious mind is constantly broadcasting your authentic identity to the world. People unconsciously pick up on whether you genuinely feel valuable or whether you're trying to convince them of your worth. Opportunities either present themselves naturally or remain invisible based on whether your energy signature matches the frequency where those opportunities exist. The impact of this understanding completely transforms your approach to wealth building. Instead of chasing money, you focus on becoming the type of person that money naturally wants to support. Instead of trying to convince the world of your value, you develop genuine value that speaks for itself. Instead of desperately seeking opportunities, you become the kind of person that opportunities seek out. This transformation requires honest self-examination about your current identity and the subtle ways it might be repelling the very abundance you desire. Do you secretly believe that good things happen to other people, but not to you? Do you feel guilty about wanting wealth? Do you carry unconscious beliefs that rich people are somehow bad or greedy? These hidden aspects of your identity are constantly influencing your financial reality, often in ways you don't consciously recognize. The journey of transformation accelerates when you begin deliberately cultivating the qualities that money admires: integrity, vision, decisiveness, generosity, and the courage to take calculated risks. You start making decisions from abundance rather than scarcity, investing in your growth rather than hoarding resources, and treating money as a tool for positive impact rather than a scarce commodity to be desperately pursued. What makes this approach so powerful is that it creates sustainable change from the inside out. When your identity genuinely aligns with wealth consciousness, you don't have to maintain it through willpower or external motivation. It becomes your natural way of being. You stop having to convince yourself you're worthy of success because that worthiness becomes an integrated part of who you are. The beautiful paradox is that when you become genuinely magnetic to money through identity transformation, you also become less attached to it as a source of security or validation. You appreciate money for what it enables rather than depending on it for who you are. Now, understanding how to maintain this elevated identity consistently, especially when external circumstances challenge your new self-perception, represents the advanced mastery that separates temporary transformation from permanent metamorphosis. And that's where we discover the deeper principles that make this new identity absolutely unshakable. Write in the comments, "Money feels welcome with me," if you're ready to embody the identity that naturally attracts abundance. The mastery of identity transformation leads us to one of the most profound revelations about how change actually occurs in the physical world. The hidden truth that most people miss is that all external transformation must first happen internally. You cannot create wealth in your external environment until you've first constructed it in your consciousness. This isn't philosophical idealism. This is the practical mechanics of how reality operates. Behind the scenes of every significant life change, You'll discover someone who made a fundamental decision to embody their desired reality before seeing evidence of it. They began thinking the thoughts of their future self, feeling the emotions of their accomplished vision, and making decisions from the place they wanted to reach rather than the place they wanted to escape. This internal shift is what creates the magnetic field that draws corresponding external experiences. The journey requires you to understand that your body is constantly receiving and storing emotional information. When you consistently feel wealthy, confident, and abundant, these emotions become encoded in your nervous system. Your posture changes subtly. Your breathing deepens. Your voice carries more authority. Your presence becomes more magnetic. You're literally rewiring your physiology to match your desired identity, and this physical transformation sends new signals to the world around you. The transformation deepens when you realize that the universe operates on a principle that most people find uncomfortable to acknowledge. It doesn't respond to your wishes, hopes, or dreams. It responds to your standards. Your current financial situation isn't a reflection of what you want. It's a perfect mirror of what you've been willing to accept. This revelation can be initially challenging because it places complete responsibility for your circumstances squarely on your own shoulders. But this responsibility is actually your greatest power. When you understand that your external reality is constantly adjusting to match your internal standards, you realize that changing your life becomes a matter of raising those standards rather than hoping for external circumstances to improve. The impact of this shift is immediate and profound because you stop being a victim of conditions and become the architect of your experience. The hidden truth about standards is that they operate like invisible boundaries in your consciousness. They determine not just what you'll accept, but what you'll even notice as possible. When your financial standards are low, you literally cannot perceive opportunities that exist at higher levels. Your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters information, only shows you possibilities that align with your current standards. Behind the scenes of this process, your standards are constantly communicating with the universe about what you consider normal, appropriate, and deserved. For someone like you, if you tolerate struggling to pay bills, working in environments that don't value your contribution, or accepting less than what you know you're worth, you're sending a clear signal that this level of experience is acceptable for your life. The transformation occurs when you make the courageous decision to raise your standards regardless of current circumstances. This means no longer accepting thoughts, emotions, behaviors, or results that don't align with your vision of who you're becoming. It means being unwilling to tolerate the mediocrity, excuses, and limitations that have been defining your experience. The journey of elevating standards requires you to become comfortable with temporary discomfort. When you raise your standards, there's often a gap between your new expectations and your current reality. This gap can create tension, doubt, and the temptation to lower your standards back to what feels familiar. But this tension is actually the creative force that drives transformation. What makes this principle so powerful is that the universe has no choice but to respond to consistently elevated standards. When you genuinely refuse to accept anything less than what you know you deserve, and when this refusal comes from self-respect rather than arrogance, reality begins reorganizing itself to meet your new expectations. Opportunities that were previously invisible become obvious. People who can support your vision start appearing in your life. The revelation deepens as you discover that maintaining elevated standards isn't about forcing outcomes or manipulating circumstances. It's about becoming so aligned with your vision of success that anything less than that vision feels literally incompatible with who you are. You're not trying to convince the universe to give you more. You're simply refusing to accept less than what matches your authentic worth. Now, understanding how to sustain these elevated standards, even when external pressures try to pull you back to old patterns represents the deeper mastery that transforms temporary motivation into permanent transformation. And that's where we discover the advanced techniques that make this new level of consciousness absolutely irreversible. Write in the comments, "I'm raising my standards now," if you're ready to stop tolerating less than you deserve. The mastery of elevated standards reveals one of the most overlooked yet powerful forces shaping your financial reality: the constant influence of your physical and social environment. What most people don't realize is that your surroundings are engaged in a continuous conversation with your subconscious mind, either reinforcing your new identity or subtly undermining it with every moment you spend in their presence. The hidden truth is that your environment isn't neutral. Every object you see, every conversation you hear, every energy you absorb throughout your day is either supporting your transformation or sabotaging it. Your subconscious mind is constantly scanning your surroundings for evidence of who you are and what you deserve, and it uses this environmental feedback to either strengthen or weaken your emerging millionaire consciousness. Behind the scenes of this process, your brain is making thousands of micro-assessments about your worth based on environmental cues. When you consistently exist in spaces that reflect limitation, disorganization, or neglect, your subconscious receives the message that this level of experience is normal and appropriate for someone like you. Conversely, when your environment consistently reflects intention, beauty, and abundance, your mind naturally aligns with these elevated standards. The revelation becomes clear when you understand that you cannot sustain millionaire consciousness while surrounded by poverty consciousness. It's like trying to maintain a positive mood while listening to depressing music all day. The environmental influence eventually overrides your conscious intentions. Your surroundings are either empowering your vision or eroding it, and most people never realize they're being influenced by forces they could easily control. The transformation begins with recognizing that environmental design isn't about having expensive things. It's about creating spaces that inspire the identity you're becoming. When you deliberately curate your surroundings to reflect abundance, purpose, and self-respect, you're programming your subconscious mind to accept these qualities as natural aspects of your life. The journey of environmental transformation requires you to become conscious of influences you've been unconsciously accepting. The people whose opinions you value, the content you consume, the physical spaces where you spend your time, all of these elements are actively shaping your consciousness and determining what feels possible for your life. Behind the scenes of every person who successfully transforms their financial reality, you'll discover someone who made deliberate choices about their environmental influences. They stopped tolerating toxic relationships that drained their energy. They eliminated sources of negative programming from their daily routine. They created physical spaces that reminded them of their potential rather than their limitations. The impact of environmental transformation extends far beyond aesthetics or mood. When your surroundings consistently reinforce your emerging identity, you stop having to use willpower to maintain elevated states of consciousness. Your environment becomes an ally in your transformation rather than an obstacle you must overcome daily. The hidden truth about this principle is that small environmental changes can create profound shifts in consciousness. You don't need to redesign your entire life overnight. You can begin by eliminating one source of negative influence, adding one element that inspires you, or reorganizing one space to reflect the respect you're learning to have for yourself. What makes environmental transformation so powerful is that it works on your subconscious mind constantly, even when you're not actively thinking about your goals. Every time you walk into a space that reflects your elevated standards, you receive subtle reinforcement of your new identity. Every time you interact with people who support your vision, you strengthen the neural pathways associated with success and abundance. The Transformation deepens when you realize that environmental influence isn't limited to physical spaces. The mental environment you create through the books you read, the podcasts you listen to, the conversations you engage in, and the social media you consume is equally important in shaping your consciousness and determining what feels achievable in your life. The journey requires you to become ruthlessly selective about what you allow into your awareness. Just as you wouldn't knowingly consume poison with your food, you must stop unknowingly consuming limitation, negativity, and scarcity through your environmental choices. Now, understanding how to integrate all these principles into a sustainable daily practice that consistently reinforces your millionaire consciousness represents the advanced integration that transforms scattered insights into unified transformation. And that's where we discover how to make this new way of being absolutely effortless and natural. Write in the comments, "My environment supports my success," if you're ready to transform your surroundings to match your vision. The integration of environmental transformation leads us to the most profound realization in this entire journey, the understanding that wealth isn't something you acquire, it's something you become. The hidden truth that separates those who achieve lasting abundance from those who perpetually struggle is recognizing that your external reality will never exceed your internal identity. You cannot have what you're not ready to be. Behind the scenes of every person who has successfully transformed their financial life, you'll discover someone who made a fundamental shift from focusing on getting to focusing on becoming. They stopped asking, "How can I make more money?" and started asking, "Who do I need to become to naturally attract the wealth I desire?" This question changes everything because it redirects your attention from external manipulation to internal transformation. The journey of becoming requires you to embody the characteristics of your desired reality before seeing evidence of it. This isn't about pretending or creating a false persona. It's about accessing and developing qualities that already exist within you but have been dormant or suppressed. When you truly become someone who operates from abundance consciousness, having abundance becomes inevitable rather than effortful. The revelation deepens when you understand that you are essentially a walking frequency, constantly broadcasting a signal through your thoughts, emotions, words, and actions. This frequency determines what you attract into your experience with the same precision that a radio frequency determines which station you receive. You cannot tune into abundance while broadcasting scarcity, just as you cannot receive classical music while tuned to a rock station. The transformation occurs when you begin consciously managing your frequency rather than unconsciously defaulting to old patterns. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every word you speak is either raising your frequency toward abundance or lowering it toward limitation. The impact of this understanding completely changes how you approach your daily experience because you realize that every moment offers an opportunity to either strengthen or weaken your magnetic attraction to wealth. Behind the scenes of this process, your frequency is creating a field of influence that extends far beyond your conscious awareness. People unconsciously respond to your energetic signature, either feeling drawn to support your vision or instinctively keeping their distance. Opportunities either present themselves naturally or remain invisible based on whether your frequency matches the vibration where those opportunities exist. The hidden truth about frequency management is that it requires moment-to-moment awareness of your internal state. When you catch yourself thinking thoughts of lack, speaking words of limitation, or feeling emotions of scarcity, you have the power to consciously shift your frequency in real time. This isn't about suppressing negative emotions. It's about consciously choosing to align with the frequency of your desired reality. The journey requires you to understand that your frequency isn't determined by your circumstances. It's determined by your response to your circumstances. Two people can experience identical challenges, but the one who maintains their abundance frequency will attract solutions, while the one who drops into scarcity frequency will attract more problems. What makes this principle so powerful is that frequency alignment creates compound effects over time. Each moment you choose to think, feel, and act from abundance, consciousness strengthens that frequency and makes it easier to maintain. Eventually, abundance consciousness becomes your default setting rather than something you have to consciously create. The transformation accelerates when you realize that you don't have to wait for external permission to embody your desired frequency. Regardless of your current circumstances, you have immediate access to the thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that correspond to wealth consciousness. You can begin broadcasting abundance frequency right now, and the universe will begin responding to that signal immediately. The revelation extends beyond personal benefit because when you consistently operate from abundance frequency, you become a source of elevation for everyone around you. Your presence begins inspiring others to access their own abundance consciousness. You become a living example of what's possible when someone aligns with their authentic power. Now, understanding how to maintain this elevated frequency consistently, especially during challenging moments when everything seems to contradict your vision, represents the mastery that transforms this knowledge from interesting concepts into lived reality. And that's where we discover the advanced techniques that make abundance consciousness your permanent way of being. Write in the comments, "I am abundance frequency," if you're ready to consciously manage your energetic signal. The mastery of frequency alignment reveals one of the most counterintuitive yet powerful principles of wealth creation, the understanding that abundance is fundamentally an emotional state rather than a financial condition. The hidden truth that transforms everything is recognizing that you must first become emotionally wealthy before you can become financially wealthy. This isn't metaphysical wishful thinking. This is the practical mechanics of how consciousness creates reality. Behind the scenes of every person who has achieved lasting financial success, you'll discover someone who learned to access the emotions of wealth before seeing the evidence of wealth. They cultivated the feeling of financial freedom while still working. Not paycheck to paycheck. They developed the sense of abundance while their bank account showed scarcity. They embodied the emotional signature of prosperity before prosperity manifested in their external world. The transformation begins when you understand that emotions are not just reactions to circumstances. They are creative forces that shape circumstances. When you consistently feel grateful, secure, and expansive about money, you're not just improving your mood, you're literally programming your reality to reflect those emotions back to you in the form of experiences that justify and reinforce those feelings. The journey requires you to make a fundamental distinction between feeling wealthy because you have money and feeling wealthy because you choose to embody that emotional state. The first approach keeps you trapped in a cycle of dependency where your inner state fluctuates based on external conditions. The second approach gives you the power to create those external conditions through the mastery of your internal state. The revelation deepens when you realize that the universe responds to your emotional frequency, not your financial statements. When you genuinely feel abundant, not because of what you own, but because of who you are, you begin attracting people, opportunities, and resources that match that emotional signature. The world literally has no choice but to deliver experiences that correspond to your sustained emotional state. But understanding this principle intellectually is vastly different from implementing it consistently in your daily life. This is where the hidden power of habit formation becomes crucial to your transformation. The secret that separates temporary inspiration from lasting transformation is recognizing that your financial destiny isn't determined by what you do occasionally when you feel motivated. It's shaped by what you do consistently when no one is watching. Behind the scenes of every significant change, you'll discover someone who understood that transformation happens through repetition, not through dramatic gestures. They built their new identity one small decision at a time, one daily practice at a time, one consistent choice at a time. They recognized that habits are either working for them or against them. There's no neutral ground. The impact of this understanding completely transforms your approach to personal development. Instead of looking for quick fixes or dramatic breakthroughs, you begin focusing on the compound effect of small, consistent actions that align with your desired identity. You realize that becoming wealthy is less about making one big decision and more about making wealthy decisions every single day. The journey of habit cultivation requires you to become conscious of the unconscious patterns that have been running your life. Most people are unaware that their financial reality is being shaped by hundreds of micro-decisions they make automatically throughout each day. The way you think about money when you wake up, how you speak about opportunities during conversations, whether you invest in your growth or seek immediate gratification, these seemingly small choices are constantly programming your subconscious for either success or struggle. The transformation accelerates when you begin deliberately designing daily practices that reinforce your millionaire identity. This isn't about forcing yourself to follow rigid routines. It's about creating sustainable patterns that naturally strengthen your abundance consciousness. When your daily habits consistently reflect the person you're becoming rather than the person you've been, your external reality begins shifting to match your new internal programming. The hidden truth about habit formation is that it works below the level of conscious awareness. Once a habit becomes automated, it operates without requiring willpower or motivation. This means you can literally program yourself for wealth consciousness by establishing daily practices that consistently reinforce abundance thinking, feeling, and behavior. Now, integrating these emotional mastery and habit formation principles into a cohesive daily practice that makes wealth consciousness your natural default represents the final piece of the transformation puzzle, and that's where we discover how to make this entire process effortless and sustainable for the long term. Write in the comments, "Wealth is my daily practice," if you're ready to build habits that create financial freedom. The integration of daily wealth practices leads us to one of the most profound techniques for accelerating transformation, the mastery of sustained visualization that transcends mere mental exercise and becomes a powerful reality creation tool. The hidden truth that changes everything is understanding that your imagination isn't separate from the physical world. It's the invisible workshop where your physical reality is conceived, designed and forged before manifestation. Behind the scenes of every person who has achieved extraordinary financial success, you'll discover someone who spent significant time mentally rehearsing their prosperity with such vivid detail and emotional intensity that their success became inevitable rather than hopeful. They didn't just occasionally daydream about wealth, they consistently inhabited the visual and emotional experience of being wealthy until that experience felt more real than their current circumstances. The transformation occurs when you recognize that visualization isn't about escaping reality. It's about designing reality. When you repeatedly imagine yourself living from financial freedom with rich sensory detail, feeling the textures, hearing the sounds, experiencing the emotions, you're literally programming your nervous system to recognize and create circumstances that match those mental images. The journey requires you to understand that sustained visualization works through the same neurological mechanisms that athletes use to improve performance. Your brain creates neural pathways for experiences you vividly imagine, just as it does for experiences you physically live. This means you can literally train your consciousness for wealth by consistently visualizing yourself operating from abundance consciousness. The revelation deepens when you realize that the quality of your imagination directly determines the quality of your Manifestations. Vague, wishful thinking produces vague, inconsistent results. But when you imagine with specificity, emotion, and sensory richness, you create detailed blueprints that your subconscious mind works tirelessly to manifest in your external experience. Behind the scenes of this process, something profound happens that most people never discover. As you consistently visualize your wealthy life with genuine emotion, the line between imagination and expectation begins to blur. You stop hoping your vision will manifest someday and start knowing it's already in motion. This shift from hoping to knowing is what makes manifestation inevitable. The transformation accelerates dramatically when you grasp the distinction between wanting money and feeling the emotions of having money. Most people focus their energy on wanting, but wanting keeps you perpetually in a state of lack. The universe responds not to what you want, but to what you feel you already possess. When you can genuinely access the emotions of financial freedom, the relief, the excitement, the gratitude, the sense of possibility, you're not just visualizing wealth, you're embodying it. The journey of emotional mastery reveals that feeling is the secret force behind all creation. Your emotions are not just reactions to circumstances, they are magnetic forces that draw corresponding circumstances into your experience. When you feel abundant now, you become a magnet for abundance. When you feel grateful for wealth before seeing it, you accelerate its arrival. The impact of this understanding completely transforms your relationship with desire itself. Instead of placing your fulfillment in some future moment when you finally have enough money, you learn to access that fulfillment in the present moment through the power of feeling. You discover that the emotions you've been seeking through external achievement are actually available to you right now through conscious choice. What makes this approach so powerful is that it works independently of your current circumstances. You don't need permission from your bank account to feel wealthy. You don't need external validation to feel successful. You don't need anything outside yourself to access the emotional states that create the reality you desire. The revelation extends beyond personal transformation because when you consistently embody the emotions of your fulfilled desires, you stop emanating the energy of need and lack that repels opportunities. Instead, you begin broadcasting the frequency of someone who already has what they want, and this magnetic signature naturally attracts people and circumstances that support your vision. The hidden truth is that this emotional mastery becomes easier with practice, not harder. Each time you choose to feel abundant instead of lacking, to feel grateful instead of entitled, to feel excited instead of anxious, you strengthen neural pathways that make these elevated emotions your natural default rather than something you have to consciously create. Now, understanding how to maintain these elevated states of visualization and emotion, even when external circumstances seem to contradict your inner vision, represents the advanced mastery that separates temporary peak experiences from permanent transformation, and that's where we discover the techniques that make this new consciousness absolutely unshakable. Write in the comments, "I feel my wealth now," if you're experiencing this shift from wanting to feeling. The mastery of emotional states and visualization opens the door to one of the most underestimated yet profoundly powerful tools in your transformation toolkit. The recognition that language itself is a creative force that either builds or destroys your financial reality with every word you speak. The hidden truth that most people never discover is that money responds to the vibrational quality of your communication, not just the logical content of your words. Behind the scenes of every conversation you have, every internal dialogue you engage in, and every way you describe your financial situation, you're either strengthening or weakening your magnetic attraction to abundance. Your words carry emotional frequencies that your subconscious mind interprets as commands about what to create in your external experience. When you consistently speak from limitation, lack, and impossibility, You're literally programming your reality to reflect those constraints. The transformation begins when you understand that your language patterns aren't just expressing your thoughts, they're actually creating your thoughts. The words you use habitually become the framework through which you perceive opportunities, evaluate possibilities, and make decisions. This is why changing your language isn't just about positive thinking. It's about rewiring the fundamental operating system of your consciousness. The journey requires you to become conscious of the automatic language patterns that have been running your financial life below the level of awareness. Most people unknowingly sabotage their prosperity through unconscious speech habits that constantly affirm scarcity, limitation, and unworthiness. Every time you say, "I can't afford it, money is tight," or "that's not for people like me," you're sending direct instructions to your subconscious about what kind of financial reality to create. The revelation deepens when you realize that transforming your language transforms your perception, and transforming your perception transforms your reality. When you consciously choose words that reflect abundance, possibility, and empowerment, you're not just changing how you speak, you're changing how you think, feel, and ultimately experience life itself. The impact of this linguistic transformation extends far beyond personal psychology. The way you speak about money influences how others respond to you financially. When your language consistently reflects confidence, vision, and abundance consciousness, people unconsciously register you as someone who operates from a different paradigm. Opportunities begin presenting themselves because you're linguistically aligned with the frequency where those opportunities exist. Behind the scenes of this process, your transformed language begins creating a bridge between your current reality and your desired reality. Each time you speak from your future self rather than your past self, you're literally calling that future into existence. Your words become the bridge that your visualization walks across to manifest in physical form. The mastery of visualization takes on new dimensions when you understand it as more than just mental imagery. It becomes the actual bridge between the invisible realm of possibility and the visible realm of manifestation. What your mind can imagine with sufficient detail and emotion, your life must manifest because your subconscious cannot distinguish between intensely imagined experiences and actual memories. The transformation accelerates when you begin using visualization not just as an occasional practice, but as a constant bridge between where you are and where you're going. Every decision you make, every action you take, every word you speak can be informed by your visualized future rather than limited by your experienced past. The journey reveals that visualization works through the same creative mechanisms that artists, architects, and inventors use to bring new realities into existence. They see the finished creation in their mind's eye with such clarity that the physical manifestation becomes inevitable. Your wealth consciousness operates through identical principles. You must see your financial success internally before you can experience it externally. The hidden truth about this bridge-building process is that it requires consistency rather than intensity. A few minutes of daily visualization with genuine emotion and sensory detail creates more transformation than hours of sporadic, wishful thinking. Your subconscious responds to repetition and emotional conviction, not to the duration of any single visualization session. What makes this approach so powerful is that it gives you immediate access to the creative force of the universe, regardless of your current circumstances. You don't need external permission to begin visualizing your ideal financial reality. You don't need anyone else's approval to start speaking from abundance consciousness. Now, understanding how to maintain this elevated language and visualization practice, even when external pressures try to pull you back into old patterns, represents the advanced integration that transforms temporary motivation into permanent transformation. And that's where we discover the deeper principles that make this new way of being completely natural and effortless. Write in the comments, "My words create my wealth," if you're ready to speak from your abundant future. The integration of conscious language and visualization reveals perhaps the most crucial test of your transformation, the ability to maintain your elevated consciousness, not when everything is going perfectly, but when life presents its inevitable challenges and apparent contradictions. The hidden truth that separates those who achieve lasting wealth from those who experience temporary success is understanding that difficulties aren't obstacles to your abundance. They're actually the training ground where your millionaire consciousness becomes unshakable. Behind the scenes of every person who has built lasting financial success, you'll discover moments when their external circumstances seem to completely contradict their internal vision. They faced setbacks, encountered rejections, experienced losses that would have convinced most people to abandon their dreams. But instead of allowing these challenges to diminish their wealth, consciousness, they used them as opportunities to strengthen it. The transformation deepens when you realize that maintaining abundance consciousness during easy times requires no real skill. Anyone can feel wealthy when money is flowing and opportunities are abundant. The true mastery emerges when you can sustain your millionaire mindset while facing apparent scarcity, when you can maintain your vision while experiencing temporary setbacks, when you can keep speaking from abundance even when circumstances suggest limitation. The journey through difficult times reveals something profound about the nature of consciousness itself. Your thoughts, emotions, and words during challenges are exponentially more powerful than during comfortable periods because they're being forged under pressure. When you choose abundance thinking while facing apparent lack, when you speak prosperity while experiencing temporary struggle, you're literally programming your subconscious with unshakable conviction. The revelation that changes everything is understanding that your words during difficult times aren't just expressions of hope, they're actually decrees that command your reality to transform. Every phrase you utter carries creative power, but this power is amplified during moments of emotional intensity. When you consciously choose empowering language while facing challenges, you're issuing direct orders to the universe about what kind of experience you're willing to accept. Behind the scenes of this linguistic mastery, something remarkable happens to your relationship with adversity itself. Instead of seeing difficulties as evidence that your vision isn't working, you begin recognizing them as the universe's way of testing your commitment to your new identity. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to demonstrate that your millionaire consciousness isn't dependent on external circumstances. The impact of this understanding completely transforms how you navigate life's inevitable storms. Instead of allowing setbacks to convince you that abundance isn't meant for you, you use them as proof that you're breaking through old patterns and limitations. You realize that the resistance you encounter is often proportional to the breakthrough that's approaching. The journey requires you to develop what could be called bulletproof abundance consciousness, a state of wealth mindset that remains intact regardless of external turbulence. This isn't about denying challenges or pretending they don't affect you. It's about maintaining your core identity as someone who naturally attracts and creates prosperity, even while navigating temporary difficulties. The transformation accelerates when you understand that the language you use during challenging times is literally programming your future reality. If you speak from defeat, you're ordering defeat. If you speak from temporary setback while maintaining vision, you're commanding breakthrough. The universe doesn't distinguish between your current circumstances and your spoken intentions. It simply responds to the dominant frequency of your communication. What makes this principle so powerful is that it gives you complete control over your transformation regardless of external conditions. Economic downturns, personal setbacks, unexpected expenses, or any other challenge can become fuel for your growth rather than evidence of limitation when you maintain conscious control over your internal state. And linguistic patterns. The hidden truth about this advanced practice is that it creates what could be called accelerated manifestation. When you maintain abundance consciousness through difficulties, you're not just surviving challenges, you're actually using them to quantum leap into a higher level of prosperity. The contrast between your temporary circumstances and your sustained vision creates a powerful magnetic force that rapidly attracts the resolution. The mastery deepens as you discover that this isn't just about personal resilience. It's about becoming a source of stability and inspiration for others who are facing their own challenges. When people witness your ability to maintain wealth consciousness through storms, they begin to believe in their own capacity for transformation. Now, understanding how to integrate all these principles into a seamless daily practice that makes abundance consciousness your natural default, regardless of external circumstances, represents the final level of mastery. And that's where we discover how to make this transformation completely effortless and permanent. Write in the comments, "I speak abundance through all storms," if you're ready to make your wealth consciousness unshakable. The mastery of maintaining abundance consciousness through challenges reveals an even deeper layer of transformation. The recognition that your environment can either amplify your millionaire mindset or completely undermine it. Regardless of how strong your mental intentions might be, the hidden truth that many people discover too late is that you can think abundance thoughts all day long, but if everything around you screams limitation, your subconscious will always default to what it sees and feels rather than what you're trying to convince it to believe. Behind the scenes of this environmental influence, your nervous system is constantly scanning your surroundings for cues about what's normal, appropriate, and possible for someone like you. When there's a disconnect between your mental aspirations and your environmental reality, your subconscious always trusts the environmental evidence over your conscious intentions. This is why so many people struggle to maintain their transformation despite having learned all the right techniques and principles. The journey of environmental alignment requires you to understand that your surroundings aren't neutral. They're either supporting your emergence as a millionaire or sabotaging it with every moment you spend in their presence. The conversations you hear regularly, the physical spaces you inhabit, the energy of the people you interact with, even the quality of objects you surround yourself with are all constantly programming your consciousness for either abundance or limitation. The transformation occurs when you begin deliberately designing your environment to reflect your desired identity rather than your current circumstances. This isn't about acquiring expensive things to impress others. It's about creating consistent visual, auditory, and energetic reminders that you are becoming someone who naturally attracts and maintains wealth. The revelation deepens as you discover the profound difference between acting toward wealth and acting from wealth. Most people spend their entire lives chasing money, pursuing opportunities, and seeking financial freedom from a position of lack. But this approach keeps them perpetually in the energy of not having, which is exactly what they continue to attract. Behind the scenes of every person who has achieved effortless abundance, you'll find someone who made a fundamental shift from seeking wealth to embodying wealth. They stopped running toward financial freedom and started living from financial freedom. They ceased pursuing abundance and began expressing abundance through their daily choices, behaviors, and presence. The transformation requires you to understand that the moment you shift from seeking to being, everything changes. When you stop trying to convince the universe to give you wealth and start operating as someone who already possesses wealth consciousness, you become magnetic to the very things you were previously chasing. The universe responds not to your desperation, but to your embodiment. The journey reveals that acting from wealth doesn't mean pretending to have money you don't possess. It means operating from the internal state, the decision-making process, and the energetic signature of someone who knows their worth and trusts in their ability to create value. It means making choices from abundance rather than scarcity, speaking from confidence rather than insecurity, and moving through the world with the dignity of someone who respects themselves. The impact of this shift extends far beyond personal psychology. When you genuinely embody wealth consciousness rather than pursuing it, other people unconsciously register the change. They respond to your energy differently because you're no longer emanating need or lack. Opportunities begin gravitating toward you because you're vibrating at the frequency where those opportunities naturally exist. The hidden truth about this embodiment process is that it creates what could be called effortless attraction. Instead of having to work hard to find opportunities, opportunities begin finding you. Instead of having to convince people of your value becomes self-evident. Instead of having to chase abundance, abundance starts chasing you. Behind the scenes of this transformation, your entire relationship with effort changes. You discover that the most powerful action comes from a place of rest rather than struggle, from certainty rather than desperation, from knowing rather than hoping. You begin operating from a place of inner fullness that naturally overflows into external abundance. The mastery deepens when you realize that this isn't just a strategy for achieving financial goals. It's a completely different way of experiencing life itself. When you live from abundance consciousness rather than seeking it, every moment becomes an expression of your inherent worth rather than an attempt to prove your value. Now, understanding how to integrate all these principles into a seamless way of being that makes abundance consciousness your natural default represents the culmination of this entire transformation. And that's where we discover how to make this shift not just a temporary peak experience, but your permanent new reality. Write in the comments, "I embody wealth now." If you're ready to stop seeking and start being, the embodiment of wealth consciousness opens the gateway to one of the most profound realizations in this entire transformation. The understanding that abundance isn't something that needs to be created. It already exists in an invisible realm that surrounds you at every moment. The hidden truth that changes everything is recognizing that wealth isn't scarce or distant. It's omnipresent, waiting in the space between thoughts, floating in conversations not yet had, embedded in connections not yet made. Behind the scenes of every breakthrough, every unexpected opportunity, every perfect timing moment, you'll discover that the abundance was already there before it became visible. The money was already flowing toward you before you saw it in your account. The opportunity was already seeking you before it knocked on your door. The solution was already present before you recognized it as such. The transformation begins when you develop what could be called abundance radar, the ability to sense and tune into the wealth that exists in potential form all around you. This isn't mystical thinking, it's practical awareness. When you understand that abundance is constantly available but only visible to those who are vibrationally aligned with it, you begin actively calibrating your consciousness to detect these invisible resources. The journey requires you to expand your perception beyond the limitations of what your physical senses can currently detect. Just as radio waves exist all around you, until you tune into the right frequency, opportunities and resources exist in your environment until you align with the frequency that makes them perceivable. The wealth you desire is already present. You simply need to develop the sensory awareness to recognize it. The revelation deepens when you realize that this invisible abundance isn't separate from you. It's an extension of your consciousness reaching out to meet your needs before you even fully articulate them. The universe is constantly conspiring to support your vision, arranging circumstances, aligning people, and orchestrating synchronicities that will deliver exactly what you need when you need it. Behind the scenes of this process, something even more extraordinary is occurring. the version of you that has already achieved everything you desire isn't a distant possibility. It's a parallel reality that exists right now in the realm of potential. Your millionaire self isn't something you need to become. It's something you need to reconnect with and allow to express through your current experience. The transformation accelerates dramatically when you understand that this isn't about creating a new identity, but about building a bridge to an identity that already exists. Within your consciousness right now lives the version of yourself that handles million-dollar decisions with ease, that moves through the world with unshakable confidence, that creates value effortlessly because abundance is their natural state. The journey of bridge building requires you to begin communicating with this version of yourself as if they were a trusted mentor who has already walked the path you're traveling. This isn't imagination, it's recognition. When you quiet your mind and tune into the wisdom of your millionaire self, you gain access to insights, strategies, and perspectives that can only come from someone who has already achieved what you're working toward. The impact of this connection transforms your decision-making process entirely. Instead of making choices from your current level of understanding and experience, you begin making choices from the wisdom of your future self. You ask yourself what your millionaire self would do in this situation, how they would respond to this challenge, what choice they would make. Right now, behind the scenes of this bridge-building process, you discover that your millionaire self isn't judging your current circumstances or waiting for you to be worthy of their guidance. They're patiently available, ready to share their perspective, eager to support your journey because they understand that your success is their expression through time and space. The revelation that changes everything is recognizing that this bridge isn't built through struggle or force. It's built through alignment and allowance. Each time you choose to think, feel, and act from your elevated self rather than your limited self, you strengthen the connection. Each moment you operate from abundance rather than scarcity, you make the bridge more solid. The transformation becomes effortless when you realize that your millionaire self isn't separate from who you are right now. They're who you are when all limitations, fears, and doubts are dissolved. They represent your natural state when nothing is blocking your inherent capacity for abundance, creativity, and value creation. Now, understanding how to make this connection with your millionaire self so strong and consistent that it becomes your primary operating system represents the final integration of everything we've explored. And that's where we discover how to make this transformation not just temporary inspiration, but your permanent new reality. Write in the comments, "I'm connecting with my millionaire self," if you can. Feel this bridge forming. The connection with your millionaire self reveals the most transformative realization of this entire journey, the understanding that your life will change, not through what you accomplish, but through the consciousness from which you operate. The hidden truth that liberates you from endless striving is recognizing that the source of your actions determines their impact far more than the actions themselves. Behind the scenes of every person who has achieved effortless abundance, you'll discover someone who made a fundamental shift in their operating system. They stopped trying to create wealth from a place of lack and started expressing wealth from a place of inherent abundance. They ceased operating from scarcity consciousness and began functioning from the certainty that they are naturally magnetic to prosperity. The transformation occurs when you realize that every action you take, every word you speak, every decision you make is either flowing from abundance consciousness or scarcity consciousness. When your operating system is abundance, certainty, and expansion, even simple actions create extraordinary results because they carry the frequency of wealth. When your operating system is lack, doubt, and contraction, even massive efforts produce limited outcomes because they're emanating the wrong energetic signature. The journey requires you to understand that this isn't about changing what you do, it's about transforming who you are while you do it. The same conversation carries completely different creative power when it comes from confidence rather than desperation. The same business decision produces radically different outcomes when it's made from abundance rather than scarcity. The same daily routine becomes a wealth-building practice when it's performed from millionaire consciousness. The revelation that changes everything is recognizing that you don't need to pursue wealth, because you are wealth in its most fundamental form. You are consciousness expressing itself through the illusion of seeking what you already possess. The money you desire, the freedom you crave, the security you seek. These aren't external things you need to acquire. They're internal states you need to remember and embody. Behind the scenes of this ultimate realization, something profound shifts in your relationship with existence itself. You stop being someone who lacks wealth and start being wealth that has temporarily forgotten its own nature. You cease being a seeker of abundance and become abundance that is rediscovering its own power to create and manifest. The transformation deepens when you understand that wealth isn't something you have, it's something you are. When you truly grasp this truth, no external circumstance can convince you that you're poor, because you know that poverty is impossible for your true nature. No temporary setback can shake your confidence, because you understand that abundance is your natural state, not something you need to earn or deserve. The impact of this understanding extends far beyond financial success. When you know yourself as wealth in movement, every interaction becomes an opportunity to express abundance. Every challenge becomes a chance to demonstrate your inherent prosperity. Every moment becomes a celebration of your unlimited creative potential. The journey reveals that this isn't metaphysical philosophy, it's practical psychology. When you operate from the knowledge that you are wealth expressing itself, your decision-making process completely transforms. You stop making choices from fear of loss and start making them from excitement about creation. You cease protecting what you have and start generating what's possible. Behind the scenes of this shift, something remarkable happens to your relationship with money itself. You stop needing money to feel wealthy and start feeling wealthy as a way of attracting money. You cease depending on external validation of your worth and start expressing your inherent value in ways that naturally create financial abundance. The hidden truth about this ultimate realization is that it makes scarcity thinking literally impossible. When you know yourself as wealth in movement, thoughts of lack become as foreign to you as thoughts of being unable to breathe. Your identity becomes so aligned with abundance that limitation simply cannot coexist with who you know yourself to be. The mastery emerges when this understanding becomes so integrated into your consciousness that you don't have to remember to be wealthy. You cannot forget that wealth is your nature. You don't have to practice abundance consciousness. It becomes as natural as breathing because you've remembered that abundance is what you are, not what you seek. The integration of this ultimate understanding completes a transformation that goes far beyond financial success. It represents a fundamental shift in how you experience reality itself. When you truly embody the knowing that you are wealth in movement, every aspect of your life becomes an expression of abundance consciousness. You've discovered something that most people spend their entire lives seeking without ever finding: the recognition that what you've been looking for has been who you are all along. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey, something profound has already shifted within your consciousness. You're not the same person who started watching this video. The very fact that these concepts resonate with you, that this conversation feels familiar and true, indicates that you're ready to step into a completely new relationship with wealth and success. This transformation we've explored together isn't just theoretical. It's a practical roadmap that countless individuals have used to revolutionize their financial reality. The principles we've discussed have the power to completely reshape your life, but only if you continue engaging with this level of consciousness expanding content that supports your ongoing evolution. I create these videos because I believe deeply in your capacity for extraordinary transformation. If this conversation has added value to your journey, if these insights have sparked something within you, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel. There's so much more depth we can explore together around consciousness, manifestation, and the practical psychology of creating the life you desire. And if you made it all the way to this moment, if you've absorbed this entire transformation with me, leave a comment saying, "This message was meant for me." I read every single comment, and I'm genuinely curious to connect with those who are serious about this level of personal evolution. Your engagement with this content, even something as simple as hitting the like button, tells me that these conversations matter to you, and it helps me understand what serves your transformation most. Effectively, there's a beautiful synchronicity when content finds the people who are truly ready to receive it. The journey of consciousness expansion never ends, and there's a video right here that takes this conversation even deeper into the practical applications of everything we've discussed. Click and continue with me over there, because what we've covered today is just the beginning of what's possible when you fully embrace your nature as wealth in movement. Your millionaire self is already celebrating what's about to unfold in your life. Trust the process, embody the principles, and remember, you're not becoming someone new. You're simply returning to who you've always been beneath the layers of limitation. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll explore how to make this transformation absolutely irreversible.